Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Wanted to talk to you today about the things in Karen Reed's case. Of course, she's the one accused of murdering John O'Keefe with her car, leaving him for dead in the snow. But the questions nobody's asking in this case. We've had a trial. It ended in a mistrial, hung jury. And I don't feel the right questions are being asked. I feel that even people on this side of the fence are assuming things that really can't be assumed and don't match the evidence. And of course, I'm talking about Kevin Lenahan from Yellow Cottage Jail saying, Karen Reed didn't mean to hit John O'Keefe. It's manslaughter. No probs. We're not going to deal with the fact that her foot was 75% on the pedal. She didn't mean it. She was just drunk and didn't realize she did it. Totally ignoring her car beeping, how she would miss that. And the fact that she strangely knew right where to find him. And even before she collected her marks, Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, we have her on airplane mode, strangely going in the direction of the crime scene. So I feel like there are people on our side who are not helping John O'Keefe, and they're furthering the Karen Reed's narrative. But before I get to that, I have a public service announcement, since I can't believe it's come to this, but it has, that I have to make. And I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to go through it bit by bit, and we're going to talk about it because accusations are being made. And I think they need to be addressed. So let's get to it.
Murder by Maestro posted another reenactment of how the scene looked from Karen's. Someone had sent me that before, and I totally forgot. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Jill, if you want to email me that real quick, we'll show it. I think you sent it to me before. I just got to see if I can find it.
A few moments later.
I can't. I know I saved it somewhere, but I don't remember where I saved it. But yeah, Murder by Maestro's made some very good videos on that. Murder used to be in the early parts of the trial, a very respected member of chat here, and we definitely no reason to ever disrespect, but he or she, I think it's a he, went away because he was Roberta Glass's moderator, and for some very bizarre reason, Roberta Glass decided to declare war on me. I don't really know. I couldn't tell you why, but so I guess that made an awkward situation for Murder by Maestro. But I've seen the videos, and he does do a very good job. So let me pull up my email and see if you guys are going to send me that link, and then I'll show it to you guys. Or it could be on my Twitter too. Do you guys have the link to Murder by Maestro? Yeah, the attack by Roberta was very out of left field, and I guess it continues too, where strangely, I think she's the one that's behind the Innocence Fraud Project. And
wow.
Hi, I'm Innocence Fraud Watch, not Roberta Glass, as you can hear, and I'm also not the Innocence Fraud Project.
she put a video up. Somebody sent a link to it that has, I don't know, only like 8 subscribers or something to it. But it was trying to say that I'm lying about the facts and about the time of the first voicemail that Karen left John. But I didn't lie. It was 12:37. And the second one was at 12:42. There was no message in that voicemail, but that's what I said. So, but it's really strange that she has, I don't know, she has a strange obsession with me. And I don't really know why, because I was never anything but nice to her. And I have to say, I was not, so people in my house would listen to her channel. So I heard some of it. I thought she had a nice voice, but I thought the commentary was generally pretty vapid. Just being honest. So I didn't listen to it myself for analysis. And I thought her commentary was also, like, even here in chat when she was with us, it took more the role of cheerleader, like she was cheering for the prosecution. And she really didn't have, like, I don't like that approach, because listen, if you can't criticize the prosecution, that's unreasonable.
Oh my God!
Because nobody's perfect.
Bruh.
And there's, I don't care who's doing the prosecution. If it's the greatest lawyer of all time, they're going to make mistakes. And if you can't be honest about that, it just feels like cheerleading. And how is that different from what goes on the other side? The Free Karen Read people, the other channels, they never question anything, you know?
Okay. So, you know, this is why I just don't think this is helping, Kevin, your view of true crime. I don't think it helps. I don't think I think you've watched Silence of the Lambs one too many times. So he has on this convicted killer, William Nagara, who killed Yvette Navarro, never mentions her name, and continues to praise him and says he's on for his incredible insights because he's remade himself. First, this killer got death penalty. That's how severe his case was in California, because he killed his mother, the mother of his girlfriend, who was nothing but nice to him. It had him in in the house, took him in for a while before she got onto his psychopathic ways and wanted to separate them. And he killed for her insurance money brutally. And first he reinvented himself as a painter and says, I've redeemed myself and I paint, the walls of the prison. And then he's now reinvented himself as a profiler. And Kevin's argument is that he has him on for the insights. And I don't know what insights a psychopathic murderer from prison can give you. I think that he's watched, like I said, Silence of the Lambs one too many times. And if you've actually watched Silence of the Lambs, it's actually clearer in the book, from what I understand, is that Hannibal Lecter solves nothing. It's all the hard work of the investigators on the ground. And if anything, Hannibal Lecter throws wrenches in the investigation. And this whole idea that profilers, we really up them, and it's sort of a true crime myth that so many cases are solved with profilers. And that's really promoted by the FBI profiler section. I think that they really tried and can lead a investigation in a direction, sometimes in a good direction. But in the end, most cases are solved not by profilers, but by really hard police work on the ground. And for him to pretend and tell his audience, like, I don't know, Roberta's just crazy, just attacked me out of the blue. No, this was my issue. It wasn't personal to you. It was your actions. And instead of saying, oh, we have a difference of opinion, you go out and you say that I'm obsessed with you, and then I'm somehow so crazy because out of all the blue, I just attacked you after you were so nice to me. I was so right. I mean, what are we talking about here? And it's this kind of manipulation. And I have criticized Adam Lally. I criticized his opening statement. I said I didn't think it was effective. But I also am always thinking about the O'Keefe family and what would be helpful to them. I don't think I've cheered on Adam Lally. I said he's not my favorite prosecutor to watch. He's not theatrical like the defense is. And I've wondered out loud, in a case with so much information, I'm hoping all 12 jurors are getting all of it. And what went on with that jury, I don't know. But it seems like he only wants to promote his side of his theories, his evidence, and everyone else somehow is getting it wrong. And I understand that without considering what we're saying, which is consider the victim. And I know his own moderator was on this channel saying, I didn't want him to have this killer on. I didn't think it was a good idea. And then he goes on his channel and stops short of calling me a bitch. So I think it's just a very dishonest presentation. And I've done over 500 episodes. The most rewarding have been episodes where I've heard from victims' families who said, thank you. Thank you for remembering my loved one. Thank you for doing such an accurate episode. So that's my motivation in my channel, is speaking up for the victims. So of course I'm not gonna enjoy your episodes with a convicted killer. And what I felt was that he was just reliving his crimes and salivating over violence under the guise of a profiler. So there's some things that we didn't. Right. And instead of taking in these criticisms and saying, oh, maybe I should reflect on what I'm doing here. He just goes full steam ahead and says I'm obsessed with him and attacks me. Maybe I should think about the victim's family a little bit more. Maybe I should mention John O'Keefe a little bit more, and Paul O'Keefe a little bit more, and Yvette Navarro, not platform her killer. So there's some issues that were not discussed in the Karen Read case, and in fact, I think are just flat out denied. And some of it has been brought up by the work of Innocence Fraud Watch. I'm very flattered that Kevin thinks that I can keep my channel running full time, do a full-time blog, and have videos going on another channel on YouTube, that I have that much energy. But as you can see, we are not the same person. But she brought up some really interesting points, and I'm going to start out with the first one. And also, I want to get into the issue of the jury. I have a few things that aren't being talked about and need to be talked about. So let me share my screen here. If you can just bear with me. This is a good one. So this is a good question. Whoop, you can see I'm already at the bottom here. This is from Innocence Fraud Watch's blog. And you can find her blog from the description. There's a link in the description of this episode. Killer Karen Read retrial. Will Commonwealth subpoena Caitlin Boudreaux, wife of brother Nathan Read? So Karen Read's sister-in-law. I know there's been a lot of talk about Karen Read's sister. Where is she? And there's been rumors that she's no longer in touch with Karen Read and doesn't support Karen Read. But Caitlin Boudreaux Read, the wife of Nathan Read, only appears to have attended one or two of her sister-in-law's pretrial hearings. And she appeared absent from the murder trial. Innocence Fraud Watch notes. And does anybody remember this video? Let me go back to the beginning, where Caitlin wipes off the back of the car and appears to look at it and keeps the tail light covered. Can you guys see? Do I have it well lined up? Yeah, okay. So, I mean, she knows. Why isn't she why didn't they talk?
What's unfortunate,
Hold on one second. Why didn't they subpoena her to talk? And you see the brother out front, you see the mother out front, you see the father out front, but where is the sister-in-law? Because she knows. She's seen the taillight. She knows the damage. And that is the reason why Kerry Roberts and Jennifer McCabe became public enemy number one, is because Karen Read essentially confessed to both of them. And they're the biggest threat to Karen Read. And it's a thing you see a lot in this. So with Kate from Masshole Troll Mafia, she's so well-spoken that she also becomes public enemy number one among the anti-Karen Read people. She's such a good advocate for the O'Keefe family that they harass her into silence. The other question is, why did Karen Read not drive to her own house? Why did she drive in Mansfield? Why did she drive to Paul O'Keefe's house? It's a very odd. Why did she do that? Because she wanted to get her car off of the road. And there's a very telling telling detail when she comes in with Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe that she doesn't take off her shoes because she knows that those rules of taking off your shoes are John O'Keefe's rules and they no longer apply. But nobody's asking that. Hey, Dean Walker, nice to see you. Thanks for the super chat. The other question, everybody's talking about this juror on both sides. So she, like a burglar, came into John O'Keefe's house so entitled. That wasn't her home. And she used it as refuge to hide her car in the garage and to plan out how she was going to get away with killing her John O'Keefe with her police officer boyfriend. And she wasn't going to call 911, so she had to get her marks to discover him. So I think it's really damaging when you say, oh, she didn't know what she was doing. Really? Because how did she find him if she didn't know she hit him? Why would she go back to that place? She was supposed to be waiting for him, quote unquote, to come home. Why would she in the snow when no one else saw a thing say, there he is, let me out, and start kicking her foot on the door, let me out, Carrie. She never calls John O'Keefe's name, jumps on top of him, pulls his shirt up, and puts her mouth down on his no fear at all, no shock at all, and records it all by putting her phone down next to Carrie Roberts' back tire and records it all. Calls him, meaning she calls John O'Keefe's cell phone, knows it's going to record, knows we'll get a recording of her being hysterical. And we heard so much about Karen Reed being hysterical in the trial. Other question is about this juror and these affidavits that I have. Okay, so I'm going to just share with you a little piece from, hold on one second, from the news, WCVB, I believe it is. I don't live in Boston, guys. Am I right on that? Is it WCVB, Channel 5, Boston? Let's watch it together. They say a fourth juror has come forward, according to David Yannetti and Alan Jackson. And I have a really, I think, key question about these jurors and why I don't believe the jury count on either side until I hear it from the jurors as a collective unit or a significant amount of jurors under oath. So let's listen to this reporting. So they're reporting this like fact. It's come from David Yannetti, and Alan Jackson have lied so much in their motions before that we have no reason to believe them, even when they hand in a sworn affidavit. But let's take a listen.
Afternoon. According to these affidavits filed here this morning at the courthouse in Dedham, Karen Reed's defense attorneys say that this fourth juror contacted them on Monday. Now, that was the same day that they filed a motion and affidavit saying they'd already been in direct or indirect contact with three other jurors. The defense has not released the names of any of these jurors, but says all four tell the same story, that the entire jury agreed Reed was not guilty of second-degree murder and not guilty of leaving the scene of a deadly crash.
So why are all these jurors going to the defense team and not the prosecution? Not anyone else. Why are they all going to the defense team? Strangely.
That means they were only deadlocked on the manslaughter charge. This latest juror tells the defense that they thought they had to come to an agreement on all three charges before they could report any verdicts. The juror says they were confused and upset.
See, if they were confused, why didn't they ask someone? So I just got off jury duty. I was on a jury. Luckily, the first vote was 11-1 guilty. It took about 3.5 hours, 4.5 hours altogether with lunch to convict this gentleman. But if you're confused, you can ring the bell. You're basically locked in this room. You can ring the bell at any time and ask. They were confused. Now they're confused afterwards about the jury forms that Alan Jackson insists insisted on being rewritten? They're confused? Really? Or is this just some clever lawyering to get rid of these very damning charges?
Said that the judge did not give them more guidance before dismissing them in a, quote, whirlwind and declaring a mistrial. Now, based on this information, the defense has already asked the judge to dismiss the murder and leaving the scene charges before Reed is tried again. And so far, Judge Beverly Cannoni has not responded to these defense motions. And the district attorney's office has only said that it plans to file its own motion in this case before a hearing that is scheduled for July 22nd. Live in Dedham, David Bieniek, WCVB News Center 5.
So what's interesting about these jury issues that the defense has is that they're only using their own sworn affidavits from the lawyers are. So they're saying this jury and this middle person said this to me, and I swear it. I'm David Yannetti. I swear it. This person came to me, said this is what happened. I swear by it. Why aren't the actual jurors or the actual intermediaries signing these affidavits? Why is no one in the press asking this question? Because I'm sorry, David Yannetti and Alan Jackson, in my view, have ruined their word and their reliability by lying so many times in these motions to the court. And why didn't the defense speak up in the courtroom and said, oh, you sure the jury? They were celebrating. Remember Karen Reed's hugging everyone? They were playing this out like it was a major victory. So if you don't know, second time around, the state has an advantage. They can sharpen up their case, and they know what the defense, they don't have the element of surprise that the defense worked so hard on creating first time around. And cases like Rabbi Newlander, the Menendez brothers, high profile cases. Even the Menendez brothers had a lot of support first time around. People aren't as interested second time around, and they are generally limited by the judge, the defenses, as to what they can bring in. And they have less of a broad, can have a less of a broad, less freedom in their defense. That's been my observations. And it usually results in a conviction of some sort. We have 3 charges, but Karen Reed's lawyers know that. They know they're at a disadvantage, and they're pushing to both convince in the court of public opinion, which so far has been really helpful to the defense in this case, and in our media, and in the actual court, this idea that the jurors dismissed 2 charges. Wouldn't you think that they would work on the smaller charges first and go up to the bigger charges, lesser charges? But I don't know. That's how I would do it. But I wasn't in the deliberation rooms. I don't know how it went. So I think that's not being asked. I also think that when people say that Karen Reed's didn't know that she hit John O'Keefe and that it's just, she didn't know what she was doing when she pushed her foot to the pedal 75% down, or 74.5% to be completely accurate down. She would have heard that beeping, and it would have gotten stronger and stronger the closer she got. She could not have not known. That she hit him, that she hit something. And she even told her parents, she called them immediately upon coming home, that I hit something, right? That's what they admit. Then she told She told all the first responders, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. If it was unintentional, how could she be so sure? And why is she so sure in all her interviews to say that, no, that's not what I said. Everybody misheard me. Everybody's lying except me, Karen Reed. And I asked, did I hit him? Which is still damning because you're still allowing it to exist in the as a possibility. That's a way to put it. And other question is, why didn't we see any of these stories about John O'Keefe's friends? I know we saw one story about John O'Keefe. I think it was in a Boston paper. But why was all the focus on Karen Reed? So let me share this with you guys. This is John O'Keefe's friend saying that the mistrial was really difficult.
Team coverage continues now with NBC 10's John Maroney. John, I know you spoke exclusively to a friend of John O'Keefe this afternoon. What did he have to say about the mistrial?
Corey, he is upset about the mistrial, but he's more concerned about the impact this is having on John O'Keefe's family.
It's tough to put it into a short interview like this, but he was a tremendous man. I met him in college, best friend in college. You know, we did everything together.
John Jackson is thinking a lot about his friend John O'Keefe lately. He says he's not looking forward to prospects of a second trial for Karen Reed.
The worst part about this is for the O'Keefes, really. You know, you just feel so bad. You just feel, you know, you don't want to see them go through it again. It was devastating.
Jackson says he's known the O'Keefe family for years and says they're being treated unfairly, especially online.
Stop talking about the O'Keefes in a negative way. Pray for them. Support them. Do what you can for the O'Keefe family. They don't deserve this.
Jackson says O'Keefe.
Right. This is what I said all through the trial. Why was this so ignored by our media? Why wasn't the media talking about how the O'Keefes feel and how terrible it is that Karen Reed started this whole witness harassment campaign and harassment of the family? And also, no one asked why Karen Reed was having such a good time at her trial. I know some people did on this side of the fence, but no one in the media did. No one asked Karen Reed, like, wow, your affect seems totally off. You're going to you're on trial for murder of a boyfriend you supposedly loved, although she admitted in one interview that, no, they were just dating. She essentially said she didn't love him. They were just dating. No one said, really? You were with him for 2 years and you didn't love him? Why? Why no follow-up questions? Why is our press so comfortable ignoring victims' families? I don't get it.
He was godfather to his now 16-year-old daughter. The former Boston police officer also raised his niece and nephew after his sister and brother-in-law passed away.
It didn't surprise us at all, but it certainly changed his life in a lot of great ways. So those kids are amazing.
Jackson owns a ball cap with his friend's badge number. He says he watched the entire trial and can't understand how people can ignore the evidence.
Stories made up by, Karen and the defense team. The defense attorneys made up a story, and people are listening to these defense attorneys like whatever they say is gospel. It's their defense attorneys.
They're right. That's like something I used to believe when I was young and didn't know anything. I used to think defense attorneys actually meant the things that they argued in court and outside of court even. No, they're just doing a job. And in this case, they're going above and beyond, i.e., beyond the confines of the rules of their profession and leaking information to a blogger and leaking the information Karen Reed wants out in concert with Karen Reed, and then referring to it in their own motions as it has been reported. Information they leaked. I mean, this is so there's a reason we have rules to keep it fair. And they went way beyond. And we've even seen the picture of Alan Jackson. No one's asking Alan Jackson. He's not talking. He's not saying that picture's fake of him canoodling, as the New York Post says, with Karen Reed. No one's reporting like, wow, when did this relationship start between the married Alan Jackson and Karen Reed? And what does that mean for the ethics that he promised to uphold of his profession? It seems a little unprofessional, no? No one's asking that question.
They're selling you a story. That's their job. And these people bought it.
Now, John Jackson knows Karen Reed. I asked him about his impressions of her. He declined to comment. Well, I've been Dedham, John Maroney, NBC 10 Boston.
Team coverage continues now with NBC 10's John Maroney.
I think that's a way of saying if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Hold on one second. So yeah, no comment on Karen Reed. So have you met Karen Reed? No comment. I don't think that speaks well to Karen Reed. Where are all Karen Reed's boyfriends? Where are all her friends? All we've seen are strangers supporting her. Where are all Karen Reed's friends? There's another question not being answered or asked. Doesn't anyone else find this odd? And we're supposed to believe 12 jurors never asked, like, hey, we're unanimous on two charges, two very important charges, but not one. Can we hang on just the one charge no one asked during the trial? Are we supposed to really believe that? I mean, how naive do they think we are? But I think that there is a feeling on this side of the fence that somehow we're going to convince people, if we take some pro Karen Reed stance, that somehow we'll be more powerful and seem more rational if we accept some of the things, like some of the defense talking points, like she was mischarged and this is really a manslaughter trial and not a murder trial, and ignore the fact that Karen Reed's car had automatic braking, that it beeped, that Karen Reed herself seems to immediately, from going home, didn't go home to Mansfield, went home to his house and immediately started planning her defense, including making sure she photographing herself on the Ring camera, bumping into, love tapping John O'Keefe's vehicle. And when they say things like, oh, it's weak evidence, really, why did it take 8 weeks for the state to present weak evidence? If it were so weak, couldn't they do it a little faster? Or no evidence. I love that. The state presented no evidence. But I feel like a lot of people on this side of the fence are not helping the O'Keefes. Not helping the O'Keefes. And I feel like a lot of them will say, I'm not a lawyer, right? But I could do it better. And convincing people that Karen Reed is just an innocent who didn't know what she was doing, was just drunk, didn't know what she was doing, and made a drunk error. When there are rumors, certainly, I don't know if this is true or not, but certainly the silence of her boyfriend speaks volumes. That she lit her boyfriend's car on fire, that she took a knife to another one. Don't know if that's true, but where are her boyfriends saying she couldn't have done this? Where are Karen Reed's friends saying Karen Reed doesn't have her into this? She doesn't have it in her to do this kind of thing. Where are they? And why are the Keefes have been an afterthought? And why have people jumped on a campaign that harasses the victim's family and harasses witnesses? without a thought like, what kind of innocent person, falsely accused person, starts in a campaign of harassment to defend themselves? Doesn't that seem like a distraction technique? Paul O'Keefe's brothers, Paul has spoken up again. Have you guys heard this interview? Let's take a listen.
Convinced, and that's fine. And those.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me go back to the beginning. My apologies.
Be a group of people that are just, they're just never going to be convinced, and that's fine. And those are the people that are out there wearing their pink shirts and tailgating and having a good old time while there's a murder trial going on inside the courthouse.
The brother of John O'Keefe speaking out tonight about Karen Read and her murder trial, which ended this week with a hung jury.
So why does everyone who knew Karen Read, who knows the most about this case, feel that this was a murder and not solely a manslaughter case? And shouldn't we take that into consideration? Paul O'Keefe isn't going, well, I don't know what the state's doing, and convincing them to drop the murder 2 charge. They knew Karen Read. They watched her actions. And also the other thing that nobody talks about, although I've talked a lot about it on this channel, is that Karen Read never talked to the family again. Left to collect her stuff. Never consoled the kids. Said in text messages that the kids and John O'Keefe, the 4 of them, were a toxic combination. Because of course Karen Read can't be the toxic the toxic element in the relationship there. It's the 4 of them all together. Somehow they're all toxic. No one said anything about that? That she left the home and said, I'll never talk to you again, and didn't? It wasn't because she didn't want to be reminded of her own crime, and instead slagged them off every chance she got and created a witness and victim intimidation campaign? No one asked that?
Paul O'Keefe says his family is now done with keeping silent about the case.
Yeah, he spoke one-on-one with News Center 5's David Bienick, who joins us live outside the courthouse once again in Dedham. David, good evening.
Good evening, Ben. If you watched any of this 2-month-long trial, you saw a lot of Paul O'Keefe. He was directly in front of the courtroom camera, right behind Karen Read, and the expressions on his face often hinted at what he was thinking. Now he's putting his feelings into words. In 2013, Paul and John O'Keefe lost their sister Kristen to a brain tumor, and a few months later, Kristen's husband to a heart attack. And when John moved into their home in Canton and became the guardian of his young niece and nephew, Paul O'Keefe wasn't surprised.
People say, they would take the shirt off their back or do anything for anybody, but not many people don't get a chance to prove that, and he proved all of that.
O'Keefe says he met Karen Read in 2020, a few months after she and his brother rekindled an old relationship. He says the family became close with Read, but he wasn't convinced she was the one for his brother.
I mean, I don't know how to describe them, but I just didn't see it as a long-term relationship working out.
In January of 2022, when his brother was found lying in a snowbank outside a home in Canton, Paul O'Keefe...
Right. And why is Kevin Lenahan saying that John O'Keefe cheated on Karen Read, when the only evidence we have is Karen Read's text messages and Brian Higgins and Brian Higgins' own testimony? Why hasn't anyone else come forward and said, oh yeah, I was having a affair. Karen Read was totally right to constantly accuse John O'Keefe of cheating? It's just not helpful. It's not helpful, and people are buying this nonsense. And it's distorting the case. And anytime you distort the case, it's not helpful.
He says at first he didn't know what to believe, but he says when he saw his brother's injuries, he immediately thought he'd been hit by a car. And a few hours later, when Read abruptly left, he became suspicious.
And it just kind of kind of hit me. And I said, wow, yeah, she did do this.
Over the next 2.5 years, O'Keefe watched as Reed and her defense attorneys started talking about an alternative theory that someone else had killed his brother and police were framing her to cover it up.
It's stories, lies, innocent people's lives being ruined. I understand a aggressive defense strategy, but this is above and beyond anything ethical.
At this
Right, because it comes right from the psychopath's mind, Karen Reed's mind. And her lying lawyers just jumped right on it and go, oh, that's the defense we're going to have. The kind of defense that accuses all the most damning witnesses, everyone who's a threat to Karen Reed, of being the most involved. People who know what really happened, they're the ones who really did it. This is not the only time that this has happened in an innocence fraud case. West Memphis 3, they accused one grieving stepfather, then accused another. No one asked what happened to the first grieving stepfather. Harassed him until he jumped aboard the campaign. Strangely, his living conditions seemed to benefit a lot from supporting the 3's release. These are not ethical campaigns. This is not the first innocence fraud campaign that I've covered. It is the first innocence fraud campaign I've covered in real time that's gone on as the trial went on, but pre-trial and during trial. Usually they happen post-conviction, the ones I talk about. Why did it take so long for the press to focus in on the O'Keefe family and consider the O'Keefe family and their feelings?
At the start of each of the 29 days of testimony, Paul O'Keefe led his family into the courtroom. He says he purposely took the same seat just a few feet away from Karen Reed and directly in front of the courtroom camera.
Nobody really wanted that first seat. I'll take the camera on me. But also I wanted Karen to know that I'm here and I'm not going anywhere and I'm going to be here every day.
Paul O'Keefe had known Karen Reed since 2020 when she rekindled an old relationship with his brother John, a Boston police officer. In 2022, Reed...
Right, isn't it interesting that Karen Reed says that John O'Keefe's the one who rekindled the old relationship and reached out to her on Facebook? And there's those text messages where she, on the day of his murder, where she's saying, why aren't you following me on Facebook? She wants to start spying on him on Facebook. So we're supposed to believe that he reached out to her on Facebook, who barely uses Facebook. Apparently she blocked him at one point and said, hey, blast from the past. How much do you want to believe that it was Karen Reed who approached John O'Keefe?
Reed was charged with killing John O'Keefe by backing into him with her SUV. And during the trial, Paul O'Keefe says he watched Reed and saw things that the camera missed.
A lot of laughing, joking, smiling. Didn't look like someone who was on trial for second-degree murder of a person she supposedly loved.
O'Keefe says he never believed Reed's defense story that someone else killed his brother and that police were framing her to cover it up. He says he was disappointed to see crowds of Reed supporters outside the courthouse each day. During closing arguments, he invited some of the people the defense had tried to implicate in his brother's death to sit with his family.
It was just our way of saying, we don't believe in any of this stuff.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
After the judge declared a mistrial, O'Keefe says Reed turned and smirked at his wife, Erin. Then, as Reed turned and hugged her father, O'Keefe passed by her and says he told her this.
I just walked by her and I said, you're not done yet. That's all.
So interestingly, there are issues that Aiden Turtleboy Carney he's been told that he's being investigated for witness tampering. Now, is that just because he released one of the jurors' names? Juror tampering. Excuse me. Is that because he released one of the jurors' names online, or is it something deeper? When the jury wrote that these are issues of deeply held beliefs and we can't go any further, is that what they were talking about? that they had gotten on some free Karen Reed people onto the jury and they weren't moving? Because as I said, I just got off a jury. I just got off jury duty. I just got off a juror, and we had to convince one juror, and we had to press her over and over again to make her argument. She misunderstood or misheard a lot of evidence. And, you know, as much as you think that you can go in and you're going to nullify a jury, I have a feeling that if there were free Karen Reed people on there or got on the jury thinking that they're going to push everyone to their side on any of the charges, that didn't work, and that they just said things like, I just think she's innocent. I just don't believe the state proved their case in this thing. And those things you really can't work with in deliberation, those kind of statements. But Aidan Carney has said that he's under investigation for juror tampering now. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's a false rumor. Certainly, we've seen a lot of false rumors being passed around in this case. And another question I'd like to ask before I go is, does this case need to be moved? Can you have a fair trial when the jury is walking by and hearing a bunch of free Karen Reed people out the window? I mean, does that create some kind of jury intimidation, even though they had to stay 200 yards away? I thought that was too close at the time. I said it. All these things have to be worked out. We have the same judge, but do they need to move it to a different area that's not so infected with this innocence fraud campaign? That's what I have today. Those are my questions. I don't think anyone's asking them. I think that certainly it would be really interesting to see. I think they should have pulled all of the Reed family up for the same reason, even if they do lie, for the same reason that Georgia Cappleman pulled up Wendy Adelson on the stand. Even if they're going to lie, it's still going to look bad for Karen Reed. I think that they still have to face some serious questions that they've never been asked, only being asked in the media and not under oath. And as I've said before, you can lie to the media, but there are ramifications for lying under oath. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening, everybody.